Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to come to Malawi. It's my first time in Malawi. I'm happy to find out that if posted in Malawi, I can settle here. If I can only bring some matoke back from Uganda. I'm going to talk about the regional perspectives in unleashing the potential for agriculture to improve health and nutrition. And my discussion is basically on two key points. That's the realization of government commitments in Africa, and also addressing the mindset when it comes to doing our programming. So, under realization of our government commitments, many a times in Africa, our presidents, our political leaders and decision makers make commitments at international, regional, even national level. Unfortunately, when it comes to actioning those commitments, it's another story. We never tend to walk the talk when we say it out there. And this can be realized from the way our decision makers make priorities when it comes to investment. Take, for example, the Abuja Declaration to increase our health budgets. If you looked at the health scorecard for the past year, you notice that only countries actually are above the 18%. If we look at the agriculture sector, the cadre, when our governments were requested to raise the investment in agriculture to at least 10%, when we go back, you realize only a handful of the countries have made that commitment. So it comes to mind, we ask ourselves, who is helping us meet the commitments that our decision makers are making at the global scene, but then also at the local scene? It comes back to the development partners. And when I was moving around at the knowledge fair, I saw so many development partners there, and the emblem for Malawi. And in my mind, I asked myself, I hope the government is actually making these investments, because out there, our governments are making the commitments, but when it comes to walking the talk does not exist. So we've got to help or to keep the governments up there, hold them accountable, which brings me to my next point. We have to have regular and active accountability platforms for our governments. If your decision maker has made a commitment out there, provide a platform, get people to follow up that commitment that has been made. We need to have those regular accountability platforms to ensure that these issues remain key on the government agendas, more so in this era of us changing our decision makers. This day there is this minister, tomorrow there is another minister, and all of them have different priorities. So how can we ensure that when we put nutrition, health and agriculture onto the agenda, that interest remains even when the leadership has changed? Because it's always leadership that changes, the technical people remain there. So how do we keep it up there on the agenda? We need to have accountability platforms, not only to look at investments, but to also consider the results at the end of the day. So you cannot proceed, Mr. President. Mr. President, you committed that no child should sleep hungry in Africa. How come 5 years down the road, we still have children sleeping hungry in our country? So we need to hold them accountable. And how can we do this? When we have, these are some of the ways that we can do it. When we have a well-informed media, it can help us make sure that our work is being walked. So how can we help the media be informed? When we do our programming, involve the media. Not only to talk good things about your organization or your agency. Let them even put the challenges that you're facing out there so that you can share with others. But then also, these are the people who are always there, and they tend to remember what did our decision maker say the last time they stood up to talk. So they remember many times down the road, other than me and you. We might not remember that our decision maker made this. Then the other thing is also, as development partners, usually when we do our investments, we are interested in getting the results. but we don't look at the sustainability of these results. It is very shameful to invest so many billions of monies into the projects that we carry out in our countries, and then you go back 5 years down the road after the project has wrapped up, and no one can remember what has been invested. So sustainability wasn't fostered. We need to make sure that commitments are being acknowledged, but then also we need to provide accountability platforms to ensure that these commitments have gone on. Then moving to addressing the mindset in our programming. In the field of agriculture, health, and nutrition, we scientists tend to always want to preach to ourselves. That's one. And then when it comes to programming, we choose to use the system that has been put in place. That is where there is a minister heading it, and where there is an entire system in place. This is a good approach. It is sustainable. But there are other partners that we tend to miss out when it comes to our programming. And these partners are very essential in scaling up and then ensuring sustainability, even after we've done our wrap-up. This is the private sector. We have got to empower the private sector when we do our programming and not to forget about it. I can give an example of fortification. This I'm borrowing from back home. When the National Fortification Program was started in our country, in Uganda, the private sector was engaged, but to a limited scale. So they carried out the fortification, but then no one thought that they would be the best partner to also carry out the social marketing for their product. They have a wider reaching audience, and they have a web that is spread out there that can reach these people, compared to when we are using government institutions that have a smaller catchment area, much as they are the ones who make our policies. So the private sector needs to be involved in our programming if we are considering issues of scale up and sustainability. And how can we get them engaged? Other than providing them with that information, with the nutrition education, we've got to provide them with a conducive environment. We've got to help them have subsidies, but also to make sure that we provide an environment that is good for them to make the profit, but also ensure intervention is going on. The other thing to consider when it comes to programming is addressing the mindset. Now this is the mindset in the sectors and then also among the individuals. You agree with me, it's common practice in our African countries to have those struggles. I was discussing with a colleague and we said, I think it's a bad habit. When we're in school, they tell us, no, don't do that, that's bad manners. But I think when it comes to our programming, then we tend to have that bad habit. There is that struggle for finances among sectors. So a sector will struggle for, they wouldn't want to work with another sector because they know if we have to share finances with the other sector, then programming might not be, we won't benefit, our sector won't get that glory. But we've got to open up, include our other sectors in our programming if we're going to have that multi-sectoral approach. Thank you very much.